This is CBC Vancouver News.
This is really scary and this is really hard for us because we know that our kids are being threatened.
At least 5 children have died from flu-related illnesses in BC in 1 month, and doctors warn it could get worse.
I think about all the women before me.
New faces.
Speed, supply, and synergy.
New ministries. Premier David Eby unveils his cabinet with plenty of changes.
I'm one bad concussion away from never doing this again.
And trying to knock out concussion ignorance. How can martial artists and gyms better protect against head trauma? Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. At least 5 families in BC are grieving the deaths of children lost to influenza-related sicknesses. They all died in the last month. And as the CBC's Christine Birak reports, doctors across this country warn more cases could be coming. So the push is on to vaccinate even more children.
Despite warnings and even pleas from doctors.
That is like the hardest part of this at the moment.
A crush of sick kids are lying in hospitals right across Canada.
It's bad. We're hearing reports of children dying at a higher rate than what we are used to seeing in a typical flu season.
Federal health officials haven't released the exact number of flu deaths in children so far. Usually, it's fewer than 10. But a BC coroner's report shows 5 flu deaths in kids under 18 in November alone. Among those who've died, 6-year-old Danielle Cabana from Richmond, BC. Her young teammates recently paid tribute to her and her love of hockey.
This is absolutely devastating for everyone in the healthcare system, and obviously, and most importantly, for the families involved.
The question many are asking, why is this happening now?
I think principally we're seeing more severe cases because of the volume.
In other words, a larger number of flu infections inevitably leads to a higher number of severe infections. And the flu can leave kids prone to serious bacterial infections as well. In the UK, there are reports of 9 children dying with strep A infections. The bacteria is commonly found in the throat and on the skin. In rare cases, strep A can cause other infections, including pneumonia.
There are certain strains that have a propensity to cause more severe disease, and I suspect that's also what we're seeing.
In Kelowna, the family of Isla Loseth say their 9-year-old died from an untreated strep A infection.
It shows in this respiratory season how we have to, all of us, take care of one another.
Flu and strep deaths in children are still rare, but doctors point out this year's flu vaccine is a good match for the virus, and they're encouraging parents to take advantage of it. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Former Kelowna Mayor Colin Basran has been charged with sex assault stemming from an alleged incident during his time in office. The BC Prosecution Service says the incident is alleged to have occurred in Kelowna in May of this year. A special prosecutor was appointed in mid-October to look into the allegations and how to proceed. Basran ran for re-election in October and was soundly defeated by Tom Dias. The former mayor will make his first court appearance on January 24th in provincial court in Kelowna. Premier David Eby has unveiled his first cabinet, and with it, some big changes for this province. 2 new standalone ministries, 8 first-time ministers, and a noticeable push for diversity. Mayor Baines says more on the new leadership and speculation about an early election call.
Premier Eby! A small but loud group of anti-fracking protesters demonstrated outside Government House as Premier David Eby and his new cabinet arrived. But with help from a strategic bus block, Eby didn't let the rally overshadow a generational shift in the makeup of his cabinet, which includes 8 new faces.
Our new cabinet represents the diversity of our province.
In a big move, lawyer and Vancouver Hastings MLA Nikki Sharma is now Attorney General. She's well versed in Indigenous law and the first South Asian woman to be appointed AG.
I think about all the women before me in my family. That didn't have the opportunities, that had sexism and racism stand in their way. And I carry those stories with me, and it hit me today.
Sharma takes over from Murray Rankin, who appeared to struggle in the legislature on the issue of repeat offenders. Former Jobs Minister and Delta North MLA Ravi Kahlon is taking over the now standalone Ministry of Housing.
Speed, supply, and synergy.
Kaila stepped aside in the BC NDP leadership race to back Eby. North Vancouver MLA Bowen Ma becomes Minister for Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. Another big change, Kootenay West MLA Katrine Conroy is BC's new finance minister. She takes over from Selena Robinson, who's moved to a less high-profile post-secondary education portfolio. Cabinet veterans Adrian Dix and Mike Farnworth will remain in health and public safety, respectively. Meanwhile, Jennifer Whiteside moves from education to mental health and addictions. And Surrey MLA Rachna Singh is now education minister.
One of the pieces that I'm particularly proud of is the presence of MLAs from the Fraser Valley in our Executive Council.
Winning seats in the Fraser Valley helped the NDP gain a majority. The opposition says it's a big cabinet.
It's a much larger cabinet now. It seems that almost 80% of the entire NDP caucus has received a raise in pay.
Premier Eby denies speculation he's preparing for a snap election next year.
I am committed to a fixed election date for British Columbia.
If so, the new cabinet has 2 years to make headway on housing, environment, and public safety until the next election. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
The mayor of West Vancouver is in hot water with the Law Society of BC. Mark Sager has been issued a citation for his handling of the will and estate of a client. And as Justin McElroy tells us, this is not his first run-in with the regulator.
It started as a favor to a dying friend.
She said, I hope you will go there and look after her. She had never married, had no children, outlived all of her friends.
Mark Sager, then just a West Vancouver lawyer, agreed to help Bunty Matthias and says they became close. She passed away in 2019, but after the Law Society did an audit of Sager's practice, they had some questions.
I am very proud of how I looked after my friend's sister. And I think the majority of people, I hope, will give me the benefit of the doubt.
But the Law Society, which is the regulatory body for lawyers in BC, at this point sees things differently. They issued Sager a citation alleging he took money out of Matthias' estate he wasn't allowed to and withdrew up to $64,000 prior to getting written permission. Sager admits to what he calls a couple of bureaucratic oversights, but says they were corrected and argues that the Law Society is overreaching.
For all of my time out of this office and away from my family, I charged the estate nothing, not a single penny. And so for the Law Society to criticize me, and by the way, I asked to meet with them. They never gave me the audience. I never got to meet with them. I just think that it's really, really unfair.
It's a case of note for two reasons. One, Sager has been down this road before, being fined $20,000 in 2020 for his handling of a different will. And two, he's now mayor of West Vancouver after winning October's local elections, though he says gossip about this case dogged his campaign.
I made it very clear to everyone I was not running to be the executor of the District of West Vancouver. I'm running to be the mayor. And I'm very proud of my law practice.
Sager's case will now head to a tribunal. If found guilty, he could be fined, suspended, or disbarred, though he believes he will find vindication.
I don't think this is fair, that this is, will cloud our administration. I hope it won't. We've got a job to do.
A job for the mayor that has now gotten more complicated. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Northern Health Authority was torn apart by a BC judge recently over its accusations against a Prince George nightclub for violating public health rules for COVID last year. Facebook videos showed unmasked people dancing and drinking, and ultimately the club was ordered to close. But now violation tickets given to the owners have been tossed out. The judge rejected public complaints as hearsay and questioned the relevance and integrity of the videos. UBC has received the largest known donation ever for multiple sclerosis research in the world, and the donor is anonymous.
And the new therapies are very complex, and they require people working from many different parts of the university to come together in a new way. So you need immunologists like me, you need bioengineers, people expert in manufacturing and developing products for use in humans, and then of course the clinical team to take care of the patients.
The $33.8 million donation will help put together teams at UBC's Hospital Foundation and VGH to support the creation of new cell therapy. It will also allow patients in BC to join clinical trials that are hard to come by.
The dream is that it brings a cure, but in the meantime, it brings hope for cell-based therapies, which we don't have access to in BC.
Leving says some of the money will go toward a new building to help expand the work already being done. Still with health news, a group of BC martial artists is trying to knock out concussion ignorance. Research suggests knowledge of brain trauma is lacking inside the world of combat sports. As John Hernandez shows us, competitors say the biggest risks to brain health don't come in the ring, but in the gym.
I'm one bad concussion away from never doing this again.
Greg Lamoth has absorbed his fair share of headshots.
My last fight, I took a big shin right in the face, couldn't get my feet, took a 7 count, got up and finished the fight and won.
Durability that he admits might both be a gift and a curse.
I've been knocked on my butt a few times. I've never been out cold. And what we've learned, and this is something that, hopefully more coaches and competitors are learning about, is that doesn't mean you got away with it.
Lamoth is aware of the risks of head trauma that come with combat sports, but he's in an educated minority. A 2020 University of Victoria study found that less than 6% of martial arts coaches recognize the level of traumatic brain injury a concussion represents. And just last month, the U.S. National Institute of Health finally acknowledged there's a causal link between brain injury and the debilitating brain disease, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. It leads to disruptions to memory, changes in personality, and can lead to dementia.
It sounds ugly to say it, but brain injury and combat sports go hand in hand. And it's worth being blunt about it, because when you're blunt about it, people understand it and they do better.
This BC lawyer has been campaigning to raise CTE awareness to fighters, coaches, and promoters across the globe. He says the majority of head injuries actually happen in gyms when fighters are training.
One thing all gyms need to do is understand concussions and have a concussion protocol in place where students who have concussive injuries remove themselves from sport and then they return safely.
Protocols Lamoth's gym has adopted.
And you're not going to shake it off and get back in there. I don't care if you feel fine. You're going home, and then we're going to start looking for those symptoms, the slurred speech, the tiredness.
Measures that won't remove the risks completely, but can help fighters make smarter choices and take fewer hits. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
We were taken off the land, but we still own this place.
A massive project with some controversy. More on the Squamish Nation's development project on False Creek after this. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream this evening. About 400 students from Manitoba recently connected with Indigenous knowledge keepers to learn about traditional practices, all part of an annual Holiday Alley Winter Festival that encourages people to think about how their actions can bring about positive change.
This piece that we're running today is really, really important to us because about 33% of us in Selkirk identify as Indigenous, and we love to dig deep into our Indigenous roots.
They get to learn about the drum and the different parts of the drum. They also get to learn a song, a simple song to go with the drum, and we do the song 3 times. We do 3 changes with that drum. So I'm really happy that we get to share this workshop with the students this year.
Tobacco tie together, okay? So
I'm doing tobacco tie teachings, and it's kind of like to start this whole journey off in a really good way. When we tie those tobacco ties, we think about, the good spirit and intention of what we're doing. We think about those good thoughts and good energies, putting in that, speaking to the tobacco, the sema, which is sacred, one of our first sacred plants that are given to us by Creator. So we're starting it off in a good way, and then we're ending it in a good way. So that's really significant. So I would invite anybody to come out and join us on Saturday and Sunday.
It will transform Vancouver's skyline and, for some, their lives. Sanok, the modern mega complex led by the Squamish Nation on False Creek, has made headlines for months. But the land itself has been a source of conflict for much longer. In our Land Back series, CBC reporter Angela Starrett has more on the First Nations' fight to finally control what is theirs, despite plenty of opposition. And a warning, there is strong language in the story.
This whole area at one time would have just been all beautiful sandy beach at low tide.
It's a 120-year lease, and it will bring stable funding to the Squamish Nation.
This development is going to help my grandchildren and great unborn descendants because of how long the lease is.
When complete, Sanok will transform the Kitsilano skyline with 6,000 rental units and 1,200 condos, with one of the proposed 11 towers standing 58 stories tall. The cost is in the millions, but critics, including neighbors, say the cost is immeasurable and raise concerns they weren't consulted. On their side, Gordon Price, a city planner and former 6-term Vancouver councillor. I spoke with him in April. He says he's not opposed to the Sanok development, but argues concrete skyscrapers and urban density are at odds with his notion of indigeneity.
You cannot say that our connection to the land is so deeply meaningful that we call ourselves land defenders. When you're building 30, 40 high-rises out of concrete, there's a big gap between that and an Indigenous way of building.
Price also takes issue with the fact that city rules for building height and complex density don't apply, since the development is on Squamish Nation reserve land, not city land. But his complaints go deeper. During the taping of our Land Back podcast, Price also said he believes the nation is taking some kind of retribution over this stolen land.
They'll be making decisions that are going to profoundly affect the development and the future of Vancouver.
It's so interesting listening to you because it's reminding me of when the settlers came here and instituted their governing structures that we weren't allowed to participate in.
That's right.
And
that's right. It's exactly like that.
So how does that make you feel? It's like the tables are being turned a little bit.
Yeah, no, look, I'll say it. It's basically, you us, now we you. That's no basis for reconciliation. That's not going to work.
But
That's
is it really
awful.
you though when they're supplying
Yeah,
housing? Thousands of people? While stark and shocking to some, Squamish Nation members like Sequoia have heard Price's comments before.
A lot of the people who are angry and, saying that they don't want to see our development occur don't know the history, and they need to be educated. and know that, and isn't just benefiting Squamish Nation, but providing housing for some of our people as well as non-native people who live in the Vancouver area.
Ottawa is responsible for reserve lands, including Sanok. In nation-to-nation negotiations, the Squamish are in talks with the federal government, not the city of Vancouver.
A lot of the fear and the fear-mongering is through lack of awareness and ignorance of the underlying issues. And once that understanding is made, you usually find really, really close allies.
Imagine the frustration of having no input over the land. It's an irony that's not lost on the descendants of Sanok, lands that once held a different kind of wealth.
All lots of resources that helped us survive. Clams, mussels, fish that don't go up the Squamish River, seals, different foods and that they were able to preserve and live throughout the winter with.
So what changed and how did we get here? Well, by the 1800s, settlers began chipping away at the territory, eventually boxing residents of Sanok into a parcel of land called Kitsilano Indian Reserve, number 6. It got whittled down over time. A bridge eventually cut through it. Also,
Vancouver was growing. They felt that it was an eyesore to have an Indian reserve right in the middle of the city. So an illegal surrender and land deal was made with the Indian agent.
In 1913, Sequalia's grandfather and other Squamish people came home from fishing season to find an empty village burned to the ground. Japremia Siam is also a descendant of Sanok and a hereditary chief.
What we're looking at, there's a barge across the water, and I feel really emotional when I see that, knowing that my ancestors, were loaded up on a barge and sent over to actually where I live now, Comulchiston, which is now called Capilano Reserve. So it is quite emotional to look at.
That removal happened because of an amendment in the Indian Act that made it legal to remove Indigenous people from reserves in an incorporated town or city without their consent. But in the 1970s, the Squamish Nation sued the federal government for that removal and won. Finally, in 2002, it struck a $92 million deal that resulted in the return of a prime slice of land right here on the shores of False Creek.
And we were awarded what was called the CNY lands because of the way the land is shaped around the Burrard Street Bridge. And the footings of the Burrard Street Bridge were actually a graveyard.
We were taken off the land, but we still own this place. Our hearts are still here. Our ancestors' hearts are still here. And nobody could ever take that away.
Construction here at Sanok is well underway. And whether the neighbors agree or not, change is coming to this land. Angela Starrett, CBC News, Sanok, Squamish Territory.
There's a live shot of Cambie Street and City Hall. Wee bit windy out there, and we're due for some rain on the south coast. Kuljeet Kaila will have your BC-wide weather forecast after this.
I never dreamed that I'd meet somebody like you.
It was 1989 when most of us first heard Chris Isaak. The song was Wicked Game, and its success launched him as both a singer and a sex symbol. Almost 10 years later, and he's still writing songs that are, you might say, conducive to romance.
Almost all the songs that I think that are important, they're about relationships and love.
Maybe I shouldn't be in here while they're singing.
You should be right here while we're singing. Let's start off with a song. You want to do one, Ken? What do you want to do?
It was right when you said you love me only.
It's that kind of talk, that confident demeanor, that might make you think this guy is something of an expert on the subject.
Have you any advice for people when it comes to seduction?
Lock the doors. You don't want people walking in on you, okay? I can't say much more till the court case is settled.
Still, he claims that he himself has not been able to make a relationship stick.
And then after probably the middle part of, having several relationships later on in life, it's like I started to think, well, I maybe I'm meeting the wrong people or going out with the wrong people. And then I think now I've come to the conclusion, maybe it could be me. Just possibly could be me. Look in her eyes, that makes a big...
Which is kind of hard to believe when he has the kind of sexual charisma that turns otherwise normal women into complete idiots.
My heart wants you only. Solo tu, solo tu, solo tu. You smell good.
Thank you.
Oh, my darling, if I hurt you, I'm sorry. Forgive me, and please say you'll be my return to me. You thought you were off the hook, didn't you?
I did.
Isaac even claims his new CD, Speak of the Devil, is all about looking for real love.
And you go home asking questions of me. What's wrong with you, Debbie? Sorry, that's not the right lyrics, is it, Kenny?
But it was
I think I
right.
screwed it up. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was a total thrill to meet you.
Pleasure. Back at you.
Thank you.
For Broadcast One, I'm Deborah Goebel.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Our BC-wide weather forecast now with Kuljeet Kaila. Kuljeet, we were supposed to get some rain sometime. It's kind of moving target right now. When is it going to be here?
You know, the systems down have been changing so much since yesterday. It keeps getting delayed, which is good news for those of us who don't necessarily like it to be too rainy, but it is coming, and along with it, a couple of warnings as well for British Columbia. Have a snowfall warning for the Sea to Sky Highway, 10 to 20 centimeters expected from this afternoon into tomorrow, and a big wind warning for the coast for Haida Gwaii, Port Hardy, up to 90-kilometer-an-hour winds later tonight. And we're going to see some of that wind as well. Today's high, not too far off the average. The rain will start tonight at around 9 p.m. and it will continue for the next several days. The winds up to 60 kilometers an hour, and the rain will go until Saturday. So rain on and off until then, up to about 30 millimeters in total by the end of Saturday. Tomorrow's forecast across the province: sunshine for Prince George and -1, -2 in Williams Lake, and some wet conditions for Dease Lake, -5 there, -3 with some snow expected in Cranbrook. That was one of the coldest spots in BC today, sitting at -4 the high. For Fort Nelson, -22 the low. They're going to be sitting at -30 by Sunday, so it's going to get very cold up there. For us, we've got some rain to deal with for the next few days, and then on Sunday, a 40% chance of seeing some flurries before we return to mostly sunny conditions. Overnight lows will be 0 and -1, so it will start to get cold, even though it will be sunny during the day early next week. Dan?
Back to those crisp, clear, sunny, cold days.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kuljeet.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for Wednesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. I'll be here with your 6 p.m. news tomorrow on Friday, and we're going to leave you with the Christmas lights of Trinity Street. That is in East Vancouver. Enjoy.